the Oklahoman newsroom, you're watching the Press Row. I'm Jenni Carlson here with Barry Tramel. Barry, a very interesting 6-day, 4-game road trip for the Thunder wraps up on Wednesday night in Minnesota. They go 3-1, but I feel like there's way more to this road trip than that record would indicate. What did you learn from this Thunder road trip?
Well, I mean, I knew they weren't playing much defense, so I didn't learn that. They didn't play much defense, but I also learned that they could sort of take a punch because it was a wild road trip. They were gone 6 days, almost 7, and all kinds of things happened. Steven Adams hurts his elbow. Andre Robertson gets clobbered in the knee by Russell Westbrook. Cameron Payne gets a concussion. They have travel problems and encounter the snow of the century in New York City. And in between all that, they won 3 games and lost 1, which is a B for that road trip. So the Thunder handled some adversity. They didn't look good doing it, but at least they got 3 wins.
Well, you said that we knew that the Thunder wasn't playing much defense, and that is true. But I think what I learned, or maybe I came to grips with it, I don't know, maybe that's the moral of the story. I came to grips with the fact that this team is just going to have to outscore teams. Now, I know that goes without saying. You win games by outscoring teams, but I really think it's going to come down to just how much offensive firepower this team has, especially against really good teams. I mean, we have not seen the Thunder yet since the opening night when they played the Spurs. We haven't seen them against these top echelon teams. They have yet to play the Warriors. The Spurs, more Spurs games to come. I just think in those games, they're going to have to be on offensively, Barry. They can play some defense, and they're going to have some moments where they do. But you remember when Sam Presti used to talk about a defensive disposition? I think that's dead, Barry.
Yeah, you don't hear that the term defensive-minded. That used to come out of Scott Brooks' mouth all the time.
When they weren't defensive-minded,
even when they weren't. Now, sometimes it was true, though.
Right.
Billy Donovan's not trying to snow us. He doesn't give us that line because he knows the defense is not adequate. Now, you lose Andre Robertson, you're not going to play as good a defense. You lose Steven Adams, you're not going to play as good a defense. So you can understand a little bit of it, but still, I think you're right. The deeper this gets into the season, the more the Thunder projects themselves as just an offensive team that's going to need a big-time performance when they have the ball.
Yeah, I don't see, you're right. They did lose the guys that they lost to injury, with the exception of Cam Payne, defensive guys that are going to make a difference on the defensive end. But, even a guy like Serge Ibaka, Barry, he racked up a bunch of rebounds the other night, but yet when I heard his rebounding total late in that game, I thought this guy hasn't had the impact on games that we used to see him have. And that's a defensive guy that you need, and you just see they're just not there defensively. I think this is just a team that, especially against the Warriors, they're just going to have to try to win that game like 136-135, something like that. Crazy stuff, but I think that's the way it's trending. Hey, you're watching the Press Row. I'm Jenni here with Barry. Barry, a huge college basketball game coming up this Saturday afternoon. It's going to be in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Unfortunately not here. I wish it were because it'd be fantastic to be at. But OU goes to LSU. It's this Big 12 SEC challenge. And, of course, everybody's going to be watching the 2 National Player of the Year candidates, that being Buddy Hield from OU, Ben Simmons from LSU. And, Barry, these 2 guys have really set college basketball buzz. But I think as much as anything, around here, I mentioned I wish this game were here. I think it would be the biggest thing going if they were playing in Norman. The buzz is back about OU basketball.
Well, there's no doubt about it. And this is such a marquee game because you got what appears to be the 2 leading candidates for National Player of the Year. Ben Simmons, we've come to expect a true freshman to be the best player. They're always the first pick in the draft with the one-and-done culture, and LSU won the lottery with Ben Simmons, so they've got the next LeBron James. He appears to be the best college freshman maybe since Kevin Durant 9 years ago. So a lot of buzz with Ben Simmons, but Buddy Hield is having a season for the ages as a 4th-year senior, and his production, his efficiency, historic, shooting over 50% from three-point range, averaging 26 points a game like it's 1974, and guys used to do that. So, it's one thing that the success of the OU team, we sort of saw the transcendency of Buddy Hield. We thought he would be a star. We thought he'd be an All-American, but the best player in America, it's been a fabulous story.
Yeah, and this is actually something that I'm diving into a little bit deeper in the Friday Oklahoman and on News OK. You'll want to check out sort of the why behind Buddy Hield's elevation. As you say, Barry, I mean, he was Big 12 Player of the Year a year ago, but that's a long ways from being now really the front runner for National Player of the Year. What happens Saturday could have some impact on that, but clearly Buddy Hield's the best player on the best team amongst the National Player of the Year candidates, clearly having a huge impact on a team that is having fantastic success this year. But he traces it all back to last April when he got his NBA draft projections, those comments and different things from execs at NBA teams, scouts with NBA teams that basically said, you know, you might go late first round, but there's a better chance you're a second round guy, and that's because of ball handling, that's because of mid-range game, that's because of getting to the rim and finishing there. And Buddy Hield got mad, and he did something about it, and we're seeing the results of that. Just like you say, a fantastic year. Has a chance, as you wrote about, to go get the Big 12 scoring title, which would be huge.
Yeah, and it's historic what he's doing. And when he's a little bit of a stranger in his own land, in that I'm not sure we appreciate how big of a story he's become. Mm-hmm. Nationally, he's becoming a sort of a cult figure with the Bahama background, with the fabulous personality and the big smile. We're sort of used to it here. Mm-hmm. We're not jaded by it. We enjoy it, but we're sort of used to it. Across the America, people are looking at Buddy Hield and saying, wow, look at this guy. Look at this great story in college basketball. A fourth-year guy who's been around forever and now is the best player in America. So just a phenomenal season. I guess I'll give you some advice. And it's advice. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to me. We got about 2 months left of this. Let's enjoy it, because this is a special thing happening right before our eyes. Doesn't happen very often here. Doesn't happen very often anywhere. Let's enjoy Buddy Hield and this Sooner basketball team.
I'll put it into some context, Buddy Hield, what you're saying about how he's became such a figure nationally. I was working on Wednesday afternoon, happened to have, in the office, we happened to have, I think ESPN or ESPN2, whatever, the talking heads late in the afternoon were on, and I just out of the corner of my eye would occasionally glance up and sort of see what they were talking about. And on 2 separate shows, Buddy Hield became the topic of conversation for part of the segment. At one point they were talking about, is Buddy Hield a better pro prospect than Ben Simmons? And in the second one they were talking about some comparisons that were being made between Buddy Hield and Steph Curry, Barry. I mean, that's about as big as you get when a guy is challenging, like you said, the guy that's the foregone conclusion #1 player in the draft and the reigning MVP in the league. When those are the guys that you're being linked to, that's remarkable. Last thing I'll ask you about this. When we talk about Player of the Year, National Player of the Year, where do you lean? A guy that's having the kind of season and impact on a team like Hield is having? Do you like a Simmons who's projected as one of the best to go into the pro game? What do you weigh out when it comes to National Player of the Year?
Well, I never get involved. I'm not involved in the process, but in my mind, and what the voters should do, the NBA draft status shouldn't matter. Yes, Ben Simmons is a transcendent player. Yes, he's a phenomenal prospect. Yes, he's probably going to turn an NBA franchise around, going to be much along the lines of a Durant, of a LeBron James. However, as a college player, he really hasn't impacted this season. He hasn't pronounced himself on the college basketball stage the way Buddy Hield has. Mm-hmm. #1 team in America, averaging 26 points a game in a power conference, which never happens anymore these days. Shooting over for 50% from the field. It's not like Buddy Hield's a volume shooter.
Barry, he scored 30 points the other night on 12 shots.
He took, literally, he used 17 possessions. 17 possessions, 12 shots, 8 foul shots, which is the equal of 4 possessions, 1 turnover. In 17 possessions, he scored 30 points.
Yeah.
It's an historic season.
It is unbelievable. Yeah, and I would say that, again, Ben Simmons having a great year. You mentioned Kevin Durant a little bit ago. But when Kevin Durant was that freshman phenom, Texas was a really good team, Barry. He really elevated Texas, and they obviously had some other players. But I just don't see that. LSU's fighting for its NCAA tournament life, and while people are interested to watch them, I think people are really flocking to see what Buddy Hield's doing. Buddy Love, Air Bud, whatever you want to call him. He is a phenomenon. I think he's now that guy that he's basically going to have to lose National Player of the Year, because I think it's his especially if he keeps playing, like we're talking about, historically well. Hey, you're watching The Press Row. I'm Jenni here with Barry. Barry, National Signing Day is upon us with all this basketball talk. There's still football going on, and obviously a lot of signing day goes back to quarterbacks because you want to know who's that next guy in the pipeline. And obviously Oklahoma State at a little bit of a crossroads right now with who that next guy is. Mason Rudolph, clearly the guy for the immediate future, but they lost Nick Starkel earlier in recruiting. Now they're scrambling a bit. Is it a surprise that they are, especially when you look at, they do have an offense and a guy like Mason Rudolph who is obviously productive, that they wouldn't be able to go out and get that guy and maybe have him secure already?
Well, it is a little bit of a surprise. I don't know all the particulars about why Nick Starkel backed off of Oklahoma State. I do think that the emergence of Mason Rudolph in 2014 as a big-time thrower. We saw a little bit of it as a true freshman at the end of 2013, but then in 2014 we saw it's legit. Mason Rudolph's the real deal. Could have scared off some quarterback prospects. Could have made Nick Starkel, we think, hey, do I want to go sit behind this guy for 2 years? May have made other guys think, I don't know. So perhaps the Cowboys are a victim of their own success at quarterback, but I can tell you this, it is a quarterback, it is a numbers deficient position right now. 2 scholarship guys in Stillwater playing quarterback. John Kohler from Norman North is the backup right now. You need 4 scholarship quarterbacks at all time, and if you have 5, that's great too. So the Cowboys need to add a third, and they're getting they're doing some exterior recruiting, getting walk-ons. The kid from Barry Hill is a preferred walk-on. So they need to replenish that quarterback position.
Yeah, and we'll get to depleted numbers in Norman here in a second too. But yeah, you mentioned Nick Burns, the kid from Barry Hill, preferred walk-on, who is getting some Division I offers apparently, but from everything we've heard is solid with the Cowboys. He's going to go to OSU, and that he's the type of guy that if he is getting other Division I offers, you could see him pretty quickly playing himself into a scholarship situation. Keandre Woodtee is a guy that has been committed to Louisiana Tech, but he's going to be a signing day announcement. So we don't know. He's another quarterback prospect the Cowboys might be in on. It sounds like they may be going after a kid from Tennessee. So some possibilities out there, but Barry, they might have a year where they don't sign a scholarship quarterback, which is actually the position that OU was in a year ago. They've sort of made up for it by getting the transfer from A&M, but that's not a position you want to find yourself in very often because now OU's thin at quarterback.
Yeah, the Sooners are in some ways even worse shape than OSU because while Oklahoma has 2 scholarship quarterbacks on campus right now, one of them just got there, Austin Kendall, the true freshman mid-year transfer. So you really can't go a year. OSU went a year, I think it was 13, without a quarterback signee. OU went 2015 without one. You really can't have that because here's the deal. These guys leave. When somebody emerges like a Baker Mayfield, all of a sudden Trevor Knight, Mr. OU, big man on campus, he goes to Texas A&M to finish his career. Cody Thomas says, I'm going to go back to the center field. So he's on the baseball team. All of a sudden Oklahoma's thin at the position. And, we've seen guys transfer out of OSU. Dax Garman, Wes Lunt in the last few years have transferred out for various reasons. So quarterbacks come and go a lot. The go we focus on, the coming, you got to make sure those gates are open and you're always bringing guys in.
Yeah, and I don't know what Oklahoma's going to do. I'd be interested to see, you mentioned Austin Kendall already committed to come and play quarterback at OU. Kyler Murray coming from Texas A&M will have to sit out this next year. I think they are definitely thinner at the position at OU just from the standpoint of you've got a starter in Baker Mayfield who's had concussions in 2 of his last 3 games. Obviously, he might go the rest of this next season without one problem. I get that. And who knows, Mason Rudolph, we may be talking in another year and saying, man, what an injury-riddled season he had. But that's where they are right now. I'm going to be interested to see if Oklahoma maybe doesn't make a push to maybe even bring in another quarterback, Barry, on signing day. I don't know if there's an option, maybe a junior college guy. True freshman, that's a little bit risky, but maybe there's a guy out there. You think about Justice Hansen. He's going to be at K-State. If he'd have just stuck around, he might be Mr. Popular on the OU campus. You just never know. Like you said, guys are always looking to leave, and with this end of your fourth year, the transfer, the Russell Wilson rule, if you want to call it that, you see that even more out of quarterbacks. Going to make for some very interesting signing day drama to see who these guys end up with on the quarterback line. Maybe even a couple guys. We'll have to wait and see. Hey, be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.